Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
For the first time in American history, a former president is facing federal criminal charges. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Today, Donald Trump pleaded not guilty to 37 counts related to his handling of classified documents since leaving office. We have reaction from Republicans and a political analyst here in San Diego, but we begin tonight with Chris Wynn with the latest from Miami.
Hello, everybody.
The former president making a stop at a Cuban restaurant Tuesday, just minutes after entering a not guilty plea in Miami federal court. While outside a vocal court of public opinion.
This is a political persecution of our duly elected president because he did win 2020.
I just can't even believe that he would be convicted.
I want to support President Trump.
Get on the bus, traitor! Get on the bus!
While buses filled with supporters of the former president rolled in, Mr. Trump's arrival was underground out of view, as was his arrest by U.S. Marshals and arraignment before a magistrate. The former president faces 37 criminal charges, a majority for alleged violations of the Espionage Act, centering on classified documents he's accused of keeping after leaving office and refusing to return them. The case has polarized many in his own party.
It wasn't anything classified. It was newspaper clippings and some personal items presented to try to give the impression that there's all these classified documents.
If this indictment is true, if what it says is actually the case, President Trump was incredibly reckless with our national security.
What exactly was he doing with them? Did someone remind him he's not the president anymore?
Chris Wynn, KPBS News.
Here in San Diego, political types were closely watching the events play out in Miami. And KPBS reporter John Carroll spoke with a couple of them.
I believe it's partisan politics.
Cynthia Cowie is president of the San Diego Young Republicans.
I think that the Trump indictment is a distraction from the real issues that are harming everyday Americans.
Cowie says her organization is steering clear of endorsing any candidate for the Republican nomination. Instead, she says her group is more concerned about issues impacting San Diegans.
Whether that's the homelessness crisis, whether that's the high cost of living, in particular here in San Diego County, and some other array of issues that are kitchen table issues.
Dr. Carl Luna is Professor Emeritus of Political Science at San Diego Mesa College. He has a different take on the indictment of Donald Trump.
Tragic, unfortunate, avoidable, dangerous. All kinds of things come to mind, John.
Luna says the first ever indictment of a former president is much more than a partisan political distraction.
But there are people serving time in prison for having done a lot less with a lot fewer documents under similar circumstances. So it's not just a distraction. There is some real meat there.
That being said, Luna says there is a perception among some that the Justice Department is being unfair, just prosecuting a candidate from one party and not the other.
There is a political aspect of this you cannot ignore, and you better have a good argument why you're bringing the politics into it by pushing forward with this prosecution at this time.
I really emphasize that the average everyday American, this isn't a huge big deal for them.
But for those who are old enough, who can hearken back to the Senate Watergate hearings, they'll remember it was a very big deal for millions of Americans. Time will tell whether this and possible future criminal indictments of Donald Trump capture the public's focus on that level. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Right now, the San Diego City Council is debating a citywide ban on homeless encampments. But KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says in many cases the ban would be unenforceable.
A survey earlier this year found the city of San Diego's homeless population has increased by 35% over the last year, and the capacity of San Diego's homeless shelters hasn't kept up. leaving many seniors and people with disabilities with nowhere to go but the streets. Mayor Todd Gloria says he's trying to make more shelter beds available.
We've opened shelters focusing on women, seniors, people with behavioral health and substance use challenges, families, LGBTQ youth, and the list goes on. We've greatly expanded safe parking in our city for those who are living in their cars to do so legally and safely.
The ordinance technically bans people from camping on public property anywhere in the city, but court decisions have put limits on how these types of laws can be enforced. Police are barred from arresting or citing someone for illegal camping when there's no shelter for them to go to. And on a typical day, homeless shelters are already full by 10 or 11 in the morning.
The point-in-time count numbers for 23 showed at least 6,500 people experiencing homelessness across the city. Our team members encounter those individuals every day, and most are willing to take shelter. But the large majority of these interactions don't end with shelter placement.
The camping ban does allow for more aggressive enforcement in some cases. In parks or within 2 blocks of a school or homeless shelter, police would be able to arrest someone if they refuse to move their tents further away. Setting aside all the legal questions, it's also unclear whether police will be able to enforce the law proactively. Staffing shortages have meant officers are frequently preoccupied responding to higher priority crimes. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Tijuana's migrant shelters are struggling to stay afloat. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis says a few things threaten their long-term future: declining donations and rising costs.
Proyecto Salesino is a Tijuana institution. For 37 years, this free soup kitchen has fed between 800 and 1,000 people each day. And the organization's migrant shelters have given thousands of asylum seekers refuge on their way to the U.S. But now, all that is at risk of shutting down.
Si no podemos ir, tenemos que cerrar con dolor en el corazón.
Father Agustin Novoa says that they lost a majority of donors during the pandemic, and the current recession has made everything much more expensive.
Toda la canasta básica, todo ha subido bastante. Entonces, claro que a los albergues nos ha pegado.
Claudia Portela manages its programs. She says the migrant shelter for women and children would be the first to close. At this rate, they have enough cash on hand to keep the lights on for maybe another month.
Muy poco, a lo máximo podremos aguantar quizás un mes más.
There are a couple of reasons for the shelter's current situation. A couple of major donors to the shelter died during COVID. Also, U.S. donations declined during the pandemic, and now people aren't donating because of the economy. Everything has been cut in half since before the pandemic. Financial support, donations, even volunteers.
Con la pandemia muchos se reducieron a la mitad. De dar 140,000 te doy 70. Y con el largo de los años que sigue habiendo problemas, nos vienen bajando las donaciones.
Shelters throughout the city are in a similar situation. They've been overcrowded and underfunded since 2020. Proyecto Salesino held a rally and press conference on Tuesday morning. It's their last-ditch effort to secure more funding. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
The days of sky-high prices may be behind us. New numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show 11 straight months of slowing inflation. But as Mike Valerio explains, some prices are still a pain.
What was once a rapid rise in prices, from online shopping to the shell shock of buying eggs, is now showing more signs of cooling, like a wildfire slowly contained.
It does appear as if those dousing of inflation fires, the efforts by the Federal Reserve, do appear to be working.
Mark Hamrick, senior economic analyst from Bankrate.com, says after more than a year of historic interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve, those higher rates are helping to slow painful price spikes. New numbers out from the Labor Department today show consumer prices up 4% for the year ending in May. That's way down from more than 9% inflation last June.
Consumers still have a right to be irritated by the current state of prices. We see food still up year over year, and as we know, going to the grocery store, there could be things like beef that feel like that's too expensive. Maybe we're going to go to the chicken instead.
Gas prices are down broadly, but what we pay for electricity is still high. In terms of summer travel, hotel prices are climbing slower, and flying is getting a little cheaper.
Compared to a year ago, airline fares are down, but there's a sense that they are still elevated.
The overall encouraging inflation news may give the Fed cover to skip raising interest rates again at its next meeting tomorrow.
Like a patient that needs to recuperate, I think Federal Reserve officials want to sort of stand back, make some observations about how the economy is handling all of that, which has been in some ways shocking.
In Los Angeles, I'm Mike Valerio.
For anyone who's gone through the home buying experience, it can be nerve-wracking, but a recent survey shows the process can be downright frightening for LGBTQ plus people. Marley Ginter explains.
2 bedrooms, 2 baths. Windows is nice.
Realtor Jim Anderson has been selling homes in the greater Sacramento area for 27 years. And as an openly gay man, he knows all too well what his LGBTQ clients look for when choosing a home.
Maybe one of the neighbors has a rainbow flag, and they're like, okay, look, they live here or they support the community. So that is important to them.
Most of Jim's clients are through referrals, and nearly 60% of them are from the LGBT community, like Luke Shawver, a first-time home buyer.
Jim, knowing myself and also being part of the community, made that kind of personal connection. So it felt right to not only myself, but also to the seller as well.
It's estimated half of LGBTQ renters in the U.S. fear discrimination when buying a home. And while there are laws in place to protect them, it doesn't take away the fear of the home buying process. In a recent survey by Realtor.com, more than half of LGBTQ respondents said they wouldn't buy a home if they were unsure about being accepted in the community. Another 32% said they were undecided. Safety and acceptance are their top priorities.
We just don't want to be discriminated against. We want to be comfortable in our neighborhood. We want to be happy. We want to be accepted. We'll be good neighbors, you know. We're not gonna, it's not about pushing our lifestyle on anyone else.
Student loan payments will restart in October for tens of millions of borrowers. The Department of Education is clarifying that interest will resume September 1st, and that's around the time the Biden administration says its pandemic pause is set to end, unless the Supreme Court rules on a separate loan case. The debt ceiling bill bars the president from another extension. The DOE says it will reach out to borrowers with more information. The mission San Luis Rey in Oceanside celebrates its 225th anniversary today. It was the 18th mission to be established in California and became known as the King of the Missions because of its size. But the history of the mission is complex, and KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne tells us it is still on a healing journey.
Mission San Luis Rey is the largest of the 21 California missions. Established in 1798, the original mission property once stretched close to 1 million acres. Today, it sits on 56 acres that retell the history of its establishment.
And so our museum is set up in such a way that it tells the history of the museum. And so the very first room touches on the Luiseño history, the Luiseño people being the original people of this land, and this is the land of the Luiseño people. And so it just talks through the history of the early years of the mission, the early founders of the mission.
Gwen Grimes is the executive director of Mission San Luis Rey.
We are a very active mission today. So we have over 50,000 people that visit the mission every year. We have 10,000 fourth graders who come here as part of California history.
While the museum offers an overall history, the grounds have more to offer. Church service is still held in the original church, as well as the modernized parish. Blooming rose gardens in the middle of the mission's ruins are a short stroll away from a cafe. And the cemetery is a mix of old and new. Headstones from the 1800s lay near burial plots available to anyone today. While Mission San Luis Rey is on its way to continue its legacy, the past can't be erased.
The history of all of the California missions is a complicated history, but I think one of the things that's very important to us as a Franciscan mission and as people who follow St. Francis is relationships. And so our relationship with the Luiseño people, the native people of this land, is very important to us.
She says there's no denying some of the mission's painful history, but the relationship between the church and the Luiseño people is one built on healing.
We obviously can't change it, but we want to grow our relationship and make sure people know that the Luiseño people are still here, that the Friars are still here, and that we still have a relationship of mutual respect and admiration for each other.
Throughout the day, church bells can be heard ringing. And once in a while, you'll also hear the chanting of the people native to the land where the mission stands. Because the grounds are also a meeting place for the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians.
I'd like to think that the Mission San Luis Rey was a little kinder to some of the people that were here in the villages.
Mel Vernon is the captain of the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians.
I think San Luis Rey in this area, thankfully it wasn't as impacted as the gold fields were up in Northern California and some of the genocide actually that happened up there. I'm not saying bad things didn't happen here.
But Vernon thinks his ancestors wouldn't want them to suffer over old wounds.
For yourself and your health, it's best to have a positive outlook because we don't have to look very far in the past to find the traumas that happened to everybody in life, and that aren't Indian, but everybody.
Grimes and Vernon agree that healing is a process. And as a new page is turned for the mission's history, both groups are undergoing new initiatives. The San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians is planning their 24th powwow on the mission grounds. It's been 4 years since their last powwow due to COVID, but Vernon says they plan to have it next year. Although parking for the powwow will look different, because the space has been leased by the mission to a new senior living community.
The mission, like every other organization, has to survive, and the Franciscans are doing what they have to do, as they've been getting older as everyone else has, so they have to have people coming in and they have to do different strategies to survive, as we all do.
And they're a great partner with us and really want to be part of our community of Oceanside and part of our mission community.
The 213 senior living units will be completed by September. But together, the mission and the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians celebrate the 225-year-old history that has led to a new start today. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
The community is invited to celebrate Mission San Luis Rey's 225th anniversary at a fiesta this Friday through Sunday. Some of the best surfers in the world are gathering in North County this week for the USA Surfing Championship. And this year, international athletes are invited to compete in the para-surfing events. North County reporter Alexander Wynn talks to some athletes trying to get the sport into the Paralympics for 2028.
Time remaining in the heat, 13 minutes, 30 seconds to go.
USA Surfing Championship is once again back in Oceanside.
The city of Oceanside and Visit Oceanside are very supportive of USA Surfing.
That's Andrea Swain, CEO of USA Surfing. Last year, the organization named Oceanside an official training ground for the sport.
It's kind of a way of life here, and we know we can always be supported.
The competition goes through Saturday, which is International Surfing Day, and that's why the city of Oceanside has designated this week Outside Celebrate Surf. It's the first such destination in the city. It's that kind of support that the organization needs as it pushes to get para-surfing into the Paralympics for the 2028 Los Angeles Games. That's why the Surf Championships opened para-surfing to international athletes this year.
We're starting to try to ramp up to that and want to showcase para-surfing, not just what we have here locally, but also open that up to other countries so that our athletes can start facing international competition more often.
Athletes from 6 countries are competing in para-surfing competition this year. Ant Smythe is a 2-time world adaptive surfing champion from South Africa. He is for para-surfing to be included in the Paralympics.
For para-surfing not to be in the Olympics would not be great, and I'm glad that there's a push to have it there. It has to be good for the sport.
Surfing is already a sport in the Summer Olympics. It made its debut in the 2020 Tokyo Games. Liv Stone, a 3-time para-surf world champion, represents Team USA in para-surfing.
I'm just stoked if I get to go, and if they take my division.
The Carlsbad resident says it's still a long process for the sports to be included.
That's a long-term goal for me to go to the Paralympics and to be a Paralympian and just experience all of that atmosphere of being in the Paralympics. I just hear nothing but amazing things about it. And of course, hoping to bring home a medal.
The para-surfing finals are tomorrow, and representatives from the LA Olympics will be there to evaluate the sport. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Recent wildfires in Canada are breaking records, and it may be only the beginning. The Canadian Forest Service is predicting this fire season is going to be worse than usual, and that means Americans along the East Coast could potentially see more days with smoky, hazy skies and poor air quality. Canada's fire season lasts through summer.
Let's start you off with your weather headlines. We are on a slow but surely warming trend, at least into the beginning of the weekend. There is going to be a slight chance for storms in the mountains, and early/late low clouds west of the mountains are going to be a concern as well. That may cause some lowered visibility as well. Now tonight, right around San Diego, we're dropping down to a low of 61. We'll have those thickening clouds again west of the mountains and across the rest of the region, while similar story from Oceanside to Chula Vista, and then as we move a little bit more inland too towards Ramona. But we also have those clouds starting to move through Mount Laguna, but overall not going to be as socked in as they are going to be west of the mountains. Now as we head into the day tomorrow, well, highs are going to be steady along the coast in the upper 60s, low 70s. Warm, of course. Borrego Springs 95, Mount Laguna not doing too shabby with a high of 59, but again the best chances for storms are going to be right there along the mountains adjacent to those high deserts, and that's going to be that chance every afternoon as we head throughout these next few days. It's not going to be a complete washout, but definitely something to be weather aware about. I know this time of year a lot of people are out and about, maybe doing some hikes. Now for the coast, your 5-day outlook: Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, temperatures staying in the 70s. Overall, relatively steady. We aren't really dealing with too much except those low clouds early and late. More inland, temperatures are on the rise. That's where we're going to start to see that warming trend. We're in the 80s by Saturday and flirting with 80 at least on Sunday with some partial sunshine. Now for the mountains, again, there are going to be chances for isolated thunderstorms, thunder showers. It's not going to be a washout. Most of your day will remain dry, but highs are going to be rising to the 60s throughout the weekend, and across the deserts, we're back into the triple digits by Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
Independence Day is right around the corner. The San Diego Humane Society wants to help pet owners keep their companions safe during the holiday. The organization is waiving fees to microchip and licensed pets from today through July 2nd. Interested pet owners must visit one of the organization's campuses around the county, and licenses are valid for 1 year. Dogs must have a California-approved rabies vaccination. KPBS is continuing its series on public art with a look at one project in the South Crest neighborhood. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it emerged from the ashes of an abandoned freeway.
This park was, I think, the city's way of trying to heal an open wound.
Artists Ingram Ober and Marisol Rendon are walking me through South Crest Trails Neighborhood Park. More than 50 years ago, the state government began seizing property here to build a freeway, but decades of community opposition put a stop to those plans. The husband and wife duo learned this history through meetings with local residents.
For those who participated in this project, you will now always be part of this place.
Members of the neighborhood and the community came out, shared stories of the loss of this land when it was seized for highway projects, the displacement of some of those families that happened back then, and then stories about the sort of over 20-year struggle that they were in to have the city then redevelop it in a different way.
The artists were inspired to photograph people pronouncing the various names their neighborhood is known by: South Crest, Shelltown, Choyas Creek, and Home.
And then we sculpted each of those faces to capture that syllable. Cast 380, I think it was, individual blocks, that custom blocks that went into this plaza, and yeah, and then laid them here.
The circular plaza at the center of Southcrest Trails was built with the park in 2018. It shows a chorus of community members reclaiming both their land and identity. Rendon says community engagement is foundational to their work, but good public art requires a lot more.
This is a 10-degree angle.
And even something as not as poetic, like for example the budget, right? And this is something that, you know, sometimes we don't talk about it, but at the same time it's so crucial to the artist to be able to develop something that really responds to so many different things. You have to almost be able to solve it all.
There's a fascinating story behind how the state wanted to build a freeway through this neighborhood and how the community banded together and managed to stop it. You can hear all about it by listening to my podcast, Freeway Exit. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, former President Trump pleads not guilty in federal court to charges related to withholding classified documents and obstructing justice. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Well, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Climate change is predicted to shrink the Colorado River, but that's not the case right now. On NPR's Morning Edition, how wildlife and people are taking advantage of the record snowmelt. And KPBS Midday Edition is discussing homelessness in San Diego with an update on the City Council's vote on the encampment ban and reviewing the recent point-in-time count results. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.